So I decided to do my ecosystem presentation on the coral reef system. What kind of plants live on the coral reef? One plant is seagrass. It's a plant that only lives in salt water, which I found really interesting because I did not know that before. Seagrass provides the habitat for small animals in the coral reef. And some of the animals are like fish, lots of different types of fish, crab, shrimp, etc., water snakes. There's just so much to name. Seagrass actually keeps the water clean, so it helps the coral reef. Flowing water hits seagrass and breaks apart and clears up the water so it's more clear and not all yucky. Empathy grows up on seagrasses, which is then a plant for the sea animals. Here's a picture of the empathies, and this is a little clownfish I entered. They eat off of that. What lives on the coral reef? There are many types of animal who live on the coral reef. Some are lots of different fish, like clownfish, sea turtles, sea urchins. There's, like I said before, there's just so many to name. The animals eat the seagrass, which helps the coral reef system because it makes it cleaner and a better environment. Sea turtles and other fish eat seagrass for food. Sponges feed on tiny food particles carried through the water to help keep the water cleaner. What is the coral reef ecosystem? Coral reef is an underwater ecosystem. It's kept together by calcium carbonate, which I found interesting. Like throughout this whole project, I did not know any of these facts during my research. Coral reefs are built by colonies of tiny animals. They are founded in marine waters with a few nutrients. Most most corals are built from stony corals, which I entered the picture right there. There's another picture I entered of the coral reef system. What are the benefits of a coral reef ecosystem? There's just so many benefits to name. They protect the coastlines from storms and erosions. So coral reef provides they actually provide jobs for people. So many jobs, which I found very interesting. What I also found interesting, more than 500 million people depend on the reef for food. That is such an interesting fact. The coral reef is actually a big tourist attraction. People could fish on it, dive, and go snorkeling, which I've always wanted to do. I want to go to Australia and go snorkeling by the coral reef system. That would just be a dream. That's on my bucket list. It adds hundreds of millions of dollars to the tourist attraction, so the coral reef is making these big tourist attractions lots of money because people want to go snorkeling and fishing. What are the threats to reef coral systems? Sadly, the coral reef ecosystem is severely threatened, which just made me sad while I was doing my research. Scientists have estimated 19% of the world has lost coral reefs so far, but it's going to go up in the next 20 to 40 years by 35%, which just makes me devastated and just saddens me. Some of the threats are storms and predators. Others are caused like by people and mainly climate change. It changes the coral reef system. There's a big threat to it. These threats actually stress corals, causes coral bleach, and sometimes even causes the coral to go to death. How does climate change affect coral reefs? The warmer the air and like ocean surface temperatures are, impact the coral reef communities, which is really sad. Climate change leads to coral bleaching, like I said in the last slide. Warmer water temps brought by climate change stress the corals. Like I mentioned in the last slide, it just stresses them out for different climate change, and which is a threat. The corals are sensitive to the change in the temperatures, causing zoothetina. It leaves the coral tissue. Without that, the tissue turns white, which is also known as coral bleaching. Reef coral. What are the coral characteristics? Reef building corals have a relationship with photosynthesis. Algae called zoometallite, like I said in the last slide, it lives in the tissue of the coral, which then the coral provides the algae with a protective environment. The algae produces oxygen and helps the coral remove waste, which I found really interesting. How can people help the coral reef live longer? Be cautious when you're going in the water. Do not step on the coral reef, because if you break it apart, it dies and it damages the reef, and you're ruining the environment. Like, be smart when fishing. Only catch what you need. Don't catch what you're not going to eat, because that could have stayed in the water for the coral reefs and helped them. I would say organize a whole day to go to the beach, clean up, and make it a better environment for the coral reef. Because you're going to clean up the beach, it'll make it a cleaner place. Leave the shells and animals alone. The organisms are an important part for the reef food web. If you take them away, you're taking away their food, and therefore they cannot live. Fishing on a coral reef. Traditional fishing is a method used to fish on the coral reef. That's just one of the methods. There's many. Another one is modern fishing / reef harvesting. They have increased over the years. If it's not done carefully, it could harm the reef. Like when you're punting the net on it, that could damage the reef and they could die. Many people are collecting food from the reefs, which is sad because that food should be for the reefs and the environment. Because people are doing this, the fish and animals may not be able to reproduce, and there will not be enough food for the animals in the future because people are destroying their habitat. And there are my citations.